So what is cancer? So to understand cancer, we have to start with a basic understanding of the cell. So we're going to go back to high school biology for a minute, humor me. But we know that the cells are the basic building blocks of life. And the human body is comprised of about 100 trillion cells. Obviously, that's an estimate. We don't know exactly, but most of the estimates today are around 100 trillion cells. And we know that each of these cells is designed to carry out specific functions. Healthy cells, they grow, they multiply, and then once they reach a certain age, they will stop working as well, and they die. And that's how it's supposed to happen. They undergo what's called programmed cell death or apoptosis. That's the healthy cycle of a cell. But unfortunately, sometimes normal cells can mutate and become abnormal. And when that happens, they're able to continue to grow and multiply when they should not. And that's what we know as cancer. So when we look at the actual definition of cancer, it's defined as a collection of over 100 diseases. And it's characterized by uncontrolled growth and division of these abnormal cells. And when enough of these cells have clustered together, we term this mass a tumor. And cancer is diagnosed based on the location within the body where the cancer originates. We know that as tumors enlarge, they can invade nearby structures, they can cause symptoms, and certainly if left untreated and unchecked, cancer can spread to other parts of the body, and that's what we term metastasis. And when we really look across the board at patients who die from cancer, the overwhelming majority of these patients are dying from cancer metastasis. So cancer that spreads and either overtakes a critical organ or just overtakes the body as a whole to where the point where the body can't withstand its effects. That's the main reason that the patients are dying from cancer. So there was a landmark paper about 20 years ago in the journal Cell, and it was termed the Hallmarks of Cancer. And it was important because it clarified the unique characteristics of cancer cells and how cancer cells are different from normal healthy cells. So if we start on this diagram here, if we start at the top in the green section, the first hallmark of cancer is sustaining proliferative signaling. And what that basically means is that cancer cells are designed to continue to proliferate, and they stimulate their own proliferation. And when we say proliferation, we're talking about just the growth and then ultimately the division of cancer cells. And so that's sort of hallmark number one. If we go around clockwise on our diagram here in the brown section, number two, evading growth suppressors, that's another hallmark of cancer because normal cells have some built-in mechanisms that prevent them from growing too much or too quickly. Cancer cells do not respond to those suppressive signals, and so they're able to evade that growth restriction and continue to grow unchecked. Continuing around the lower right section, activating invasion and metastasis. Cancer cells are unique in that they are not constrained by borders or nearby structures. They just want to invade everything. And so with a normal cell, it's not going to invade an area it's not supposed to go, whereas cancer is. That's why you can see cancer invade the bloodstream. It can invade lymphatic areas. It can invade other organs and tissues. Definitely a hallmark of cancer. Continuing around our diagram clockwise at the very bottom, the blue section, enabling replicative immortality. That's important because normal cells have a pre-programmed number of cell divisions before they are supposed to die. Cancer cells do not have that. So that basically means that cancer cells are immortal. They will continue to grow and divide unless they are killed by an outside force, which would be our treatment. So cancer cells are immortal unless we kill them. The next section, the red part of our diagram, inducing angiogenesis, that's basically the formation of new blood vessels. So we know that cancer needs a lot of energy, a lot of nutrients to continue to grow and divide as quickly as it does. And so one of the ways it does that is it actually promotes the formation of new blood vessels to feed itself. So if you look at an advanced tumor, it has many, many extra blood vessels attached to it that are used to take resources and energy sources from the rest of the body. And a dramatic example of this is when patients are in stage with their cancer, and they have what's called cachexia. They have this wasting syndrome. They're very, very frail and thin, almost skin and bones. And part of how cancer causes that to happen is it's ultimately stealing resources from the rest of the body. So if a patient's eating, most of that energy that the food would normally be providing to normal healthy cells is going to feed the cancer. And again, that's a very end stage process, but that's part of what angiogenesis is seeking to do. And then our last one in the upper left, resisting cell death. Again, that speaks to cancer's immortality. It is designed to continue to grow and divide unless we stop it. Now, since those hallmarks of cancer were initially identified and published over 20 years ago, there have been two new hallmarks that have been added. The first is abnormal energy production. We know that cancer is very reliant on sources of energy, whether they be carbohydrates or protein or hormones or iron, wherever it may be. And we'll talk more about that shortly. But cancer needs a lot of energy. And so in order to fuel all of its processes, it needs more energy. And so abnormal energy production is a hallmark of cancer, as well as the ability to evade immune system detection. We know that cancer has ways of cloaking itself and masking itself so that the immune system in the body cannot see it. So that's why a lot of people, they focus on the immune system, and we need to, but their belief is that we only need to stimulate the immune system and strengthen the immune system. Well, that's only part of it, because we also have to make sure that the immune system is capable of seeing cancer. And so we'll talk more about how we can better expose cancer to the immune system so the immune system actually views it as foreign, as something that we need to go kill. So we can summarize the 8 hallmarks of cancer. We can talk about how cancer grows very quickly. It overrides the growth restrictions present in normal cells. It takes in a wide variety of energy sources, all while escaping immune system detection, with a goal of invading the body and ultimately spreading throughout the body until it overtakes it. That's the good summary of how cancer behaves and how cancer does what it does. So how does cancer form? That's a common question. A lot of patients that come to my office for the first time will say, Dr. Stegall, how did I get cancer? Well, most people erroneously believe that cancer is typically a genetic issue. It's a result of genetic bad luck. You got the wrong parents, that kind of thing. And we do know that cancer requires genetic mutations. So there do have to be alterations in the genetic structure of a cell in order for that cell to become cancerous. But interestingly enough, the genetic mutations that we see are rarely inherited from mom and dad. Research has actually shown that up to 90% of cancers are caused by lifestyle and environmental factors. So it's not the genes you're born with, it's how those genes change over time as a result of the cell's exposures. So cancer can be thought of as resulting from repeated damage to your cells throughout your life. And this is why cancer is generally thought of as a disease of aging. In other words, it's one of those diseases that we typically see an increased risk of as one gets older. So we must rethink how we view cancer. And so rather than viewing cancer as a disease that starts with a genetic mutation, I believe that we need to go upstream and talk more about what's actually causing those mutations to happen. And this is where the field of epigenetics can really help us. We know that epigenetics is the study of how our genes respond to their environment. And scientists have discovered in recent years that our genes can be either turned on or turned off depending on their environment. So they're constantly responding to whatever environment they're bathed in, whatever environment they're exposed to. So our goal then is to make sure that the beneficial genes are turned on, the good genes that we got from mom and dad, while we also make sure that the harmful or the potentially harmful genes are turned off. So epigenetics can help us do that. So this diagram here, it shows us a little bit about how epigenetics can contribute to cancer formation. You can see there they have several potential inputs there. They have diet, lifestyle, aging, even the gut microbiome, that digestive system bacteria. All of those things can contribute either in a good way or in a bad way to the behavior of our genes. And in the case of cancer, all those changes over a period of years or typically decades can result in cancer. So it's not an immediate effect from our lifestyle that we typically see cancer. It's usually many decades later. So the message here is it's never too late to start making positive changes. And we'll talk more about what that looks like. But the genes are always responding to what they're exposed to. And that's in contrast to what we thought for many, many years. We used to just think, well, you have the genes that you have, you can't change them. There's nothing you can do about it. Either you won the genetic lottery or you lost. But now we know that our genes are very responsive to their environment. So let's think for a moment about the average person in the United States today. They're typically overweight or obese. They're typically going to be inactive. They're going to lead a sedentary lifestyle. They're going to eat a diet that's high in calories, but lacking in nutrients. And they're probably going to be pretty stressed out. And that's especially true as we're 2 years into the pandemic. Stress levels are at an all-time high, even higher than they were before. And so it's really the perfect storm for a cancer promoting environment.